for this project, I started with a 6 by 6 inch mold that I poured resin into. The resin I'm using is art resin. It's a 1-to-1 ratio resin. It's actually a fairly thin resin that you have a long work time with. So I poured this into the mold about a 1/4 inch deep, not very deep at all, and I let it set up overnight. So when you're working with molds, it's really important that when you use your heat element that you don't put it directly on the mold, because I've had problems with the melting the mold into the resin, and I actually ripped a mold because of it. So you just have to be careful to try to get it just onto the resin when trying to get rid of the bubbles. So I prefer the heat gun instead of the torch when I'm working with molds. And actually what I've been using now is this heat tool that's actually an embossing tool, because it directs the heat exactly where you want it, and it's not as cumbersome as those great big heat guns. That's just my preference. So the next day I took it out of the mold and I took something called gallery glass, and the best way to describe this is it's like puff paint, and honestly I don't know that it's any different. And I went ahead and I outlined the outside of the resin, and then I made a line down it, and I wasn't really happy with the line I made. It wasn't supposed to be a straight line, but this is to make up the 2 birds, but it's okay, and I think it'll look just fine. And then I let this dry overnight, 24 hours, and then the next day I came in with a metallic marker. It's a gold metallic oil-based marker, and I painted the entire black dried paint around the outside. So the only advice I can give you about this with the metallic marker is if you do get it on the resin, you're best off having a Q-tip with rubbing alcohol right by and get it off right away, because I did get some on the resin, and the dried resin, and normally when I'm using this marker on glass I can take it off with a razor blade, but on the resin you cannot. So you're best off getting it off right away with the rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip, so have it on standby as you're painting this. And then when I was all done painting it, I got out my VITRIGRAPH glass. VITRIGRAPH glass is long strands of glass that I actually picked up on Etsy, and you can see it here. And it comes in all different colors. They stretch this glass somehow, and it's about, I don't know, $16 for about 4 ounces, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you really do get quite a bit. And what I'm using this for is the branch that the birds have their claws on. So I'm trying to find one that's kind of straight, but doesn't have to be perfectly straight. And when I find the one I need, I use my nipping tool and I go ahead and cut it to length. And then I take my metallic oil-based marker again and I draw claws hanging on to the branch, is what that's supposed to simulate for the bird. And the one side I put them kind of off center, so what I did was I went ahead and took some rubbing alcohol and took that off, and then redid the claw prints on the piece of VITRIGRAPH glass. And I almost thought about making the claw marks with the puff paint too, and then painting them gold. So there's a couple different ways that you can do it, but I chose to do it this way for now. I may actually change it later. Then I took out some orange glass and used my nipper tool to cut 2 triangles for beaks for the 2 birds. And then I was ready for the resin. So next I took my art resin, which I mixed up off camera, and mixed it with eye candy red mica powder. It's called AKAI TSUKI red. And I've never used this before. This is actually the first time I'm using this mica powder. And I wanted to put enough in there so that you could see the pretty red, but not too much so that it was opaque. I wanted it to be a little bit translucent. and it's really hard to determine. And so I put it on that side first, and if I had to do it again, I would have used less because I ended up having to scoop some out as it went on. And on the other side, I also used a mica powder by Eye Candy called Snowflake, and it's just beautiful. Both of the mica powders are beautiful. And again, I mixed the Snowflake Eye Candy white mica powder with the resin, and I poured it on the other side. And this I sat and messed around with for a while because, see here, I'm taking some of the red out because it's kind of overflowing into the white. So this is the first time I've ever done this, and the divider is high enough to keep them from going into each other, but you really have to be careful. And then I put the two beaks on. And really, I spent about another 15 minutes with this, just watching it to make sure it wasn't going to overflow. And because the resin, the original resin heart was so thin, it was still a little bit flexible, and it was bending a little bit at the top. So I kind of had to tip it up to keep the resin from flowing off of it. So, and here I am taking a little bit more resin out of there because there's too much. So this is one of the reasons why I did not draw the heart right on top of the glass, because I was afraid of the resin running and going over onto the glass. But I think next time I would do it directly on the glass. Better off starting out with less. And the other tip is to wait until the resin is a little bit thicker, that it's sat around for a little while before you pour it on. So the art resin that I use is a very thin resin, I would say, and it has a very long work time. I know I think they say 45-minute work time, but I swear you can mess with it for over an hour. And so if you were to keep it in the cup for closer to the work time where it's gotten a little bit thicker, it's less likely to run as much. Like I said, you'd be better off starting with a little bit less. So next I had to draw the eyes, and as you know, I'm not the best artist. So I started using the metallic marker first to draw them. I thought that would look pretty, but after a few minutes I realized that the metallic just wasn't dark enough, so I went ahead and took out the black oil-based marker and went over it with that so that they would stand out a little bit more, and I think it turned out a little bit better. What do you guys think? Next, I took this 9x11 frame and basically took it apart, took the backing off, took the glass out, took the clips out, and then it needed a little bit of paint, some touch-up paint, so I went ahead and I painted it white. And after this dried overnight, I flipped it back over and I took Elmer's glue and I put it around the perimeter of the back of the frame where the glass would sit. Then I replaced the glass and I took Elmer's glue one more time and put it around the perimeter of the back of the frame, this time on top of the glass or in the crease along the edges. And this has to dry overnight and sometimes up to 24 hours depending on how much glue you use. Next, I went ahead and mixed up my resin and got all my supplies together, and I poured it on the canvas, or on the glass, I should say. And the resin I'm using for this project is art resin. It's a 1-to-1 ratio resin that you mix slowly in the cup for 3 minutes to get rid of the bubbles. And after I spread it out on the glass, I went ahead and used my heat gun, little kitchen torch to get rid of the bubbles, and then I started assembling the project. And you can see I used the Scrabble letters Lovebirds, and I go to a lot of garage sales, and I have picked up several Scrabble games, and I've also picked up the Scrabble letters from Dollarama or Dollar something. It's not the Dollar Tree, although I have heard people say that they did find those at the Dollar Tree. I just never have. Anyway, I've got them from different places, and I just think they're really cute. And I went ahead and I put the resin all over the bird and all over all of the little Scrabble pieces. And I tell you what, I had to come and babysit this project, come in every 20 minutes and reposition the letters. Nothing else moved. I don't know if because my table isn't totally level or what, but those little letters just kept on slipping. And for 2 hours, I had to come every 20 minutes and reposition them. So this resin, art resin, has a very, very long work time. It says 45 minutes, but those little buggers slid for at least 2 hours, and I was able to push them back into place. So if you're using a resin with a very long work time, I would suggest you not put them in for a while, or make sure your table is super, super level. But I thought this table was real level. Like I said, the birds didn't slide at all, but the letters, they really slid all over the place. Having said this, this needs to sit on a flat level surface overnight. Usually after 12 hours you can touch it. It takes a full 72 hours to cure. All resins are different. You need to read the directions for the resin that you are using. Hey everyone. So this I think is so cute, and I actually, where I saw this first was actually on a cookie. Somebody decorated a heart cookie like that, and I thought that was so pretty. And then I thought, oh, it would be so cute, because I like to use the Scrabble letters. I did a couple projects last year with some Scrabble letters, and I ended up buying Scrabble letters and getting Scrabble games from garage sales for Scrabble letters. And then of course Valentine's over. I guess I could use them for other projects too. I'm gonna have to think of something. Anyway, so I wanted to put this on glass, so I wanted it kind of translucent, but you could also do it, just go ahead and take your glass and put your heart around it. Now, for around Christmas time, I was doing a lot of things with the strands of crystals. I don't even remember what you call them, but anyway, the little jewelry that goes around, and then filling in with glass. So of course you could do the same thing with that. I was just afraid that the main reason that I did it, the resin in the heart first, and took the resin out and did the puff paint around there like that, was I was afraid that this was going to leak over onto the glass and I was going to have a big mess, which a lot of it did leak. So I was able to clean it up, but you don't have to go to that extreme. You could just draw your heart out on that, and you could actually put glass in the middle, or if you're doing it on a canvas, you could make the resin, the mica powder, put a little more mica powder in it, and make it opaque. It doesn't have to be translucent, but I thought, oh, because it's going to be on the glass, I thought it would be so much prettier if it was translucent. Anyway, I think it turned out cute and just something different. Not a whole lot of glass on this one, but there is the VITRIGRAPH glass on that. Almost forgot the name of it. Anyway, and then of course the glass for the beaks is real cute too. And like I said, you could do it with the crystal chains around it. That would be another way, but I didn't know that would totally block the resin from going over. You'd have to put a real thin amount of resin, or I guess you could do glass. You didn't have to do resin, just pour the clear resin over it. But anyway, I thought it was a cute idea, something different for Valentine's. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you guys. I love to see what you're making. My email is in my about information. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to be notified of future videos, go ahead and subscribe. And I hope you all have a great day. Thanks for watching.